Esportiva Joan Gamper, FC Barcelona's training center in San Juan d'Espí, just about 8 kilometers, 11 or 12 miles from Camp Nou. As we await FC Barcelona head coach Luis Enrique, so he can take questions from the media ahead of tomorrow's match. FC Barcelona hold a 1-0 aggregate lead heading into the match tomorrow night and look to qualify for the semifinals in the Copa del Rey for the 7th straight season. Barca have won the last 2 editions and are also looking to win for the 3rd straight year. Here comes manager Luis Enrique. Again, the time is 1:21 Central European Time.
Bon dia a tothom. Si aneu seient, sisplau, comencem la roda de premsa amb el tècnic del Futbol Club.
Good morning, please. We're about to begin the press conference. Please take your seats.
Recordeu, sisplau, de dir el nom i el mitjà.
I'd like to remind you to please state your name and the media outlet you are representing for each question, and please turn off your mobile phones.
Marc, on vulguis.
Bona tarda, míster. Marc Grau de Barça TV.
A question from Barça TV.
Quan vau jugar l'eliminatori contra l'Atlètic, deies que l'Atlètic és un equip que té la seva identitat pressionar, sigui quin sigui el resultat. La Real Sociedad arriba demà al Camp Nou, havent de remuntar.
When we were looking at the pressure created by Athletic Club, and now you're looking at Real Sociedad,
poder sortir bé i solucionar aquesta pressió que us pugui.
Do you think that they'll be able to do any better than Athletic Club, even though they're playing at Camp Nou? Without any question, I think that they can do that at Camp Nou. The fact that they play the same way at home and away, and they create pressure, will be one of the phases of play that we'll have to look at. And we'll have to overcome it in order to go through to the next round.
Hola, bon dia, míster. Marc Garriga, Catalunya Ràdio, en directe per Catalunya Informació. Portem uns quants dies parlant de
Catalunya Radio.
L'equip de canvi de tendència.
We've been talking about the team dynamic in the last few days. Is the team euphoric, or are you trying to stop that so that they don't become overly confident? I think that the team is feeling great right now. It's optimal. We continue to have the same ideas, the same optimism, and we want to reinforce that optimism. And I think it's good. And for us, it's the only way that we can in League and Copa del Rey to keep the pressure on. This is an attractive competition and match in the Copa del Rey, and we would really like to continue. And so we are clearly motivated for that.
Bon dia, Marta Ramon de RAC1.
A question from RAC1.
En una entrevista que Aleix Vidal es queda, m'agradaria saber quin canvi has observat en ell aquesta primera volta.
Been looking at Aleix Vidal and whether he's staying or not based on a recent interview. Can you talk about his situation? I haven't looked at it that way. I always saw him in the same light with the way that he trained and the way he competed when he did so. It's not that something happened that made me change my opinion. There are always things that people can improve, but that happens to every player, and the players have to take advantage of the minutes that they get in every competition and when they're training. I look at players also in training, but he's in the same boat as the rest of his teammates. There's nothing else to look at there. We'll see.
Hola, Luis. Adrià Albets, Cadena SER.
Question from Cadena SER. Do you think, what kind of chance do you think Celta has to knock out Real Madrid? And do you think, what can you say about the possibility of Real Madrid being left out of the Copa del Rey? I don't want to comment on those games. I want to talk about the games that we're playing. The only thing I'm looking at in the quarterfinals is that I hope Barça goes through. The question from Radio Nacional. With regard to the game at Anoeta, both in the Copa del Rey and in the league, do you think that those games could be of use for tomorrow's game? Well, of course, we're not playing at Anoeta, we're playing at Camp Nou, and there are other positive factors at play that are different from when you play away. We have the same idea of play, we're looking for the same result. We do have different ways to solve problems that do arise during the game. Playing at home is not the same as playing away. I think that we know that they're going to try to turn around the aggregate score from the first minute. We know how difficult the game is going to be because of who we're playing and what we know they can do. And we hope that the game turns out to be the one that we're expecting. And that we are capable of keeping things in our favor. And we know that Real Sociedad needs a good result in order to move into the next round themselves. A question from Cadena Cope.
Luis Enrique siga. ¿Notas este mismo sentir en el vestuario? ¿Notas que ellos quieren también que continúe?
A question about Ivan Rakitic and Leo Messi and players renewing their contracts. No, I don't have anything to say about that.
Carles Colan.
Luis, aquí Carlos Escolán en directo para Radio Marca. Buenas tardes. Te pregunté personalmente después del partido contra el Eibar por la baja de Sergio Busquets.
I asked you about Sergio Busquets after Eibar and who do you think is going to replace him? You said you had a lot of options. There's some players that could step in there easily, both on the wing and in the middle. Who do you think is going to go into that spot? I would tell you, but I know that Eusebio, their coach, is listening to this press conference, or one of his assistants. So I don't just have two options, I have four options, and I'm going to be thinking about it tonight. Which of those four players is going to step in? I know that you have a job to do, but when you come into these games, it can look like it's pretty much all over and that the team can't really come back. But you always come out to win the games, but is there some sort of point to worry about, or is everything already done here? Well, that would be a huge mistake to think that. We have always had the objective of going out for the win, regardless of the result from the first leg in these types of two-leg ties. But looking at a rival of this magnitude and of this level, based on how they're playing right now, it's a dangerous game, without any doubt. My players know it. The public know as well, the fans. And everybody knows that it's always been difficult for us to beat Real Sociedad, both in Anoeta and Camp Nou. We have the chance to go through to the semifinals, but we're going to have to do it by playing a good game. We're going to have to come out from the very first minute. They have nothing to lose. They can only improve. These games do present an imminent danger, and we do have to overcome that.
Hola, Mr. Marc Marvà, de la porteria de BTV.
A question from BTV. You've said that there's no other player like Iniesta. Is there another player like Busquets? No. I can't think of any players that are that good. For me, two of the best, if not the best players at their position in world football. But these things happen. I have to find solutions. Every team loses players through injury. That's part of football, especially with such a busy calendar. And unfortunately, players do get injured. I'm sorry for having lost players due to injury, and I have to look for players to replace them, and I have good options.
Hola, buenas. Jamie Easton para beIN Sports Estados Unidos.
Question from beIN Sports United States. People have been talking a lot about the renewal of Lionel Messi. I don't want to ask about his renewal, but how he's grown as a player with Barca. Now he looks like he's more of a playmaker and a passer. And do you think he'll keep going in that direction as a player and growing as a playmaker heading into the future if he stays here for more years? Well, his growth as a footballer is unquestionable. It's been a process that has a lot to do with his maturity as a person. We've seen years when he was the only one who scored for the team, practically, and basically he's the total footballer. He can do anything on attack and on defense as well. As he's such an intelligent player, he will continue patching up any of these faults that he has, potentially, by improving in other areas. But he's the prototype of player. He's very strong physically. But he doesn't really need that because he doesn't need a lot of space and he can touch the ball and pass and move around without the ball and position himself adequately on the field. And then if you add his technical skill and his physical qualities, you see what we see every single day, which is a unique player.
Adrià, Sol de Vila del Mont. Vostè va dir l'altre dia que tenia 4 opcions.
You said the other day you had 4 options for center midfield: Rakitic, Mascherano, Sergio Roberto, and Andre Gomez. But it's obvious each one of those has a different profile. What can each of them bring? What are their similarities? What are their differences as you look to bring someone into the middle of the field? Well, you've said those players, but we don't just have 4. We also have Rakitic. We also have Denis Suarez. And if I had to talk about the characteristics of each of my players, I would also be giving hints to Eusebio, their coach, about who I'm going to play there and about what we're trying to do. What's true is that the player that's going to play there is going to have a tough time because they like to close up space in the midfield and up on attack, and they like to create pressure. And we have to resolve that positioning and find a way to open up spaces and beat their pressure. So I have 6 good options, very good options, to put somebody there in that position. A question from Sport. Do you think Eusebio is ready to be the coach of FC Barcelona? I don't think this has anything to do with tomorrow's game. I'm thinking about winning the game tomorrow night. Question from beIN Sports. What can you say about the season that Arda Turan is having? Well, I think he's having a season like the rest of his players, an optimal season, an excellent season. He's playing well. He's on the right path. He wants more minutes, like a lot of other players. And I have to decide who gets those minutes and who has to rest. But I'm happy with his performance and with the performance of all of his teammates. A question from Movistar Plus. I wanted to ask you about Rafa Nadal, who's in the semifinals of the Australian Open. He's showing that you never have to give up. What can you say about that? Well, I think those characteristics that define Rafa Nadal as a tennis player, after having won everything and won, and then having been injured and losing out on a little bit, he loses very infrequently, but in showing his values when he doesn't win, that's difficult. Everybody's great when they're winning, and him too. But people also have to show their greatness as sports people and people when they don't win.
hi ha cap equip millor que el Barça a l'hora de superar aquesta pressió alta, que per exemple us vau trobar...
I'm talking about Barca being the ideal team to overcome this type of pressure that you're expecting tomorrow. What is the secret that Barca has to overcome that type of pressure that you faced all season long? I think those are very nice words to hear, but there are other teams who have been able to do that, and we've had trouble with it. We're not machines. They're not robots. These are players. There's a lot of hard work going on behind the scenes. There's positioning. But, of course, we have to have talent. We have to be effective, and the players have to be in the right place at the right time. And we're good, and we usually resolve this in the best way. But these things are always difficult. Any situations in which the opponents keep the pressure on around your goal makes things tough. It's tough around the goal. We also have the ball, and we like to go deep, and we open up the field to all of our players, which gives us the chance to resolve situations, but it also implies more risk. And I repeat, as a function of our level and that of our opponents, we search for the adequate and proper solutions. Question from Mundo Deportivo. I wanted to ask you conditionally about how do you see the club? Do you think that that's one of the things you could take into account when you think about coming back in the future? Can you talk about those factors? I don't normally talk about things related to this topic, but I look at my attitude, that of my players, everything. This is my third year here, and I see the same desire and hunger for everybody in a team that can continue making history and winning titles. I see the same motivation, the same hunger, and we hope to reinforce that every season. A question from Marca. Real Sociedad is the only team to beat Barca in the battle for possession, which they did in a 1-1 tie at Anoeta in La Liga. Is this a sensitive issue, knowing that you don't have Iniesta and Busquets going into this game? Sensitive area? I've already been asked about what they mean as players. Both Busquets and Andres, but I have to focus on the players that can play. And we have solutions for these positions that are very good, and they are competing to step in at these positions. Last question.
Hola Luis, ¿qué tal? Buen día, Xavi Riera para 3 Media.
A question from A3 Media. In talking about Escalante's tackle on Sergio Busquets in the last game, and they didn't even call a foul. With Barca's questions about the level of refereeing, do you think that the level of refereeing is good in this country? Yes, I do, but they need help to do their jobs because we see everything in favor of our teams. We don't see anything that happens against us. And when you're talking about this issue, it's tough to paint referees as a whole with a broad brush. I repeat, they need help to do their jobs. We don't criticize them. Thank you very much. The players will be at the training center at 10 a.m. and the training, the squadras will be released. Thanks for listening.